Bingo, it's fixed. Sorry for that. It's the authentication issue. So everybody, welcome to the Dev Metrics Working Group. As always, we will go through the list of persistent links and the agenda. So with that, let me share my screen. And since Christopher is not here, we can also briefly go through this. When he comes back, we can go back on this as well. But we usually look at the MRs per month charts. I think we're at the 25th, and it's coming close to the previous month at 7.35. I think our last record was 8.08. So hopefully we get parity in the next coming 5 days. Total MRs per month at 1,517. I think it's leveling off from the last month. We have 5 days left, and I'm not sure if 200 MRs are going to make it within 5 days, given the weekend as well. So I think we're going to come in close. And the total time to resolve bugs are still the same. I think we anticipated this until the new trash package goes out. And also, we want to surface the list of bugs using the new group and stage labels, which is going to be rolled out. It's being rolled out right now. With that, I will stop sharing my screen, and we can discuss the main items on the agenda. We can skip the hypothesis this time. Greg is not here. So I have the first one. So we have implemented an easy way to track missed deliverables and deliverables, though it's not exactly what Josh that you had doing it by engineers, but at least we have a review app here that shows how many deliverables we deliver per milestone. And let me just share my screen again. You will see that. So this is in a review app at the group level. So from this, it seems like we were completing things more than we have, like very aggressive. However, I think there's a mislabeling event for 12.1, and I'll wait until the team has like relabeled and labeled their stuff first before looking at 12.1. This is the first time we're looking at this metric actually. But given the past, right, it seems like we're delivering more aggressively. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think actually, let me jump back to, just so folks get a sense, here's the spreadsheet I was working off of in the past. I did this by hand. I'll just.
Would you like to share your screen as well? So we have.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also added the doc here. So, 1 second. All right, this should be the right browser. Okay, cool. All right, so this is when I, hold on, let me open it. Here's the one I got previously. So this is completed deliverables per milestone. So in theory, these numbers should match up, right?
Yes, and I didn't get to ask where we got this number.
I was just doing searches on MRs that had labels.
Oh, MRs. So these are issues, product issues with deliverable marked on them.
Got it. Because issues can get closed and other stuff. So I was going based on MRs merged.
Got it. Okay.
I should probably make that clear in this. This is actually.
So MRs with deliverables.
Yes. Now, I guess the problem there could be that that the MR might not get the deliverable label on it unless you credit through the UI. Is that like the potential failure mode here?
Yes.
That we're highlighting?
That's one. If we don't have those cross-linked, then we won't capture it here. But also there could be deliverable issues that do not have an MR that were just closed out. So
right.
The correct way to do it is what Christopher has added in that issue. And we need to go by delivered deliverables with any MRs associated with that issue, and we count only that number of deliverable issues.
Yeah, you actually, I'm actually saying maybe more complicated, but you actually want to probably find MRs with the closes thing, right? Because people sometimes link MRs for unrelated, like that don't actually close the issue potentially. If that, you know what I mean?
Is product kind of governing this? Like, do we actually tell engineers, hey, if it's an MR that works on a deliverable, like link them up? Is there?
No, I mean, I think most times we do as a best practice have it as closes X, right? That way, when it gets merged, it auto closes the issue. And so how I've seen is that almost always happens. There might be a few times where it doesn't, but if it doesn't, the issue sometimes straggles and it just stays open. But in most cases, I've seen it where it gets closed. I think the challenge here is, like, if you open a separate MR, I think the labels don't come over automatically. Whereas if you click, I think, like the create MR button, they do. But probably most people aren't doing that, but probably just creating the branch, pushing it, and then getting the MR little link and putting it, and then hitting close. And so that's probably why, and then having to remember to manually set the deliverable label, which is probably why I would think top line counts are lower. Although actually they're not. Well, 233 for 12. So there was 233, 188. So actually for most, yeah, I'd be curious. We probably just dig in here and see a little bit more. I think that, flame mode is that the deliverable label isn't being applied to the MR. Other potential causes is, this is a potential undercount for the spreadsheet. And then the other one would be issues which are closed and not actually delivered, because we don't really know the difference, right? Basically.
Right. Okay.
Is a potential undercount for the insights-driven report. So I think we need to look in here. I think there's potential problems with both. Either way, my sense is probably the issues are, well, let's see. But yeah, I mean, the issues are definitely going up rapidly, which is good, which you'd expect.
So,
or not.
Christopher, thanks for joining. For context here, we're talking about the deliverables and cross-linking with those MRs have the deliverable label or not, or those issues have MRs backing them or not, and trying to find the ground truth for that.
So those are completed deliverables issues per milestone. So is that ones that are marked as deliverable as opposed to overall issues, or is that just
This is what we discussed earlier, where we want to see some parts of the data, and these are just issues with deliverable and close for that milestone.
Okay.
And we haven't done the extra query to link whether that deliverable issue has an MR related to it or not. And that's the next iteration.
That's fine. I would actually want to see closed issues as well.
This is closed issues. Closed issues with the deliverable label.
That's what I'm saying is without the deliverable, like all issues closed.
Yeah, the only issue there is that we don't do a good job of determining whether, like, why it was closed, if that makes sense. Whether someone closed it because we're not going to do it, or whether someone closed it because it actually got merged and completed.
Yeah, well, if let's put it this way, let's say the number's 1,000. If we're closing 750 issues that we open and then close, isn't that a problem? Here's my supposition, Josh. This is put this as a hypothesis. My hypothesis is that we're actually closing a lot more issues than we're representing, because we're only marking deliverables as things that are related to product. And if that's the case, we need to recognize what that is, because ultimately you own priority, but if it turns out that teams aren't effectively prioritizing such that those are considered as part of the deliverables, then that's great. If the number comes out close to even, then okay, now we've got the real data, we can look at it, we can figure it out, right?
Sure.
like it just feels like this is a quick, easy one to figure out. And then it gives us a lot more information, because like, if it turns out, again, if we're closing 1,000 and 750 of those are, we open them and we close them, that's a problem. You need to go fix that, right? If it turns out that it's like 10% more, okay, what are those for, right? Like, let's go look at that data and see what those are for, because like that may be cases where engineering's just prioritizing arbitrarily. That's not acceptable, right? Like, we should be having conversations with product about that.
Sure.
Does that make sense, or does it?
Yeah, as an exercise to determine like if the deliver label is being properly applied, right? So I think one thing is we need some guidelines on the planning process. That's become clear here, I think, based on the discussion yesterday as well. But I think for deliverables, that should be everything, including bugs, features, like everything that's going through the planning process. And if there's MRs being done that aren't in there, I would just be interested in see what that is. If it's like the backstage stuff that we do, that might be different, but that wouldn't be an issue. So
less concerned about MRs. These are issues. Yeah. Not saying that about MRs. MRs is a different way to cut the data. This is just around issues.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it makes sense. I think the one concern is just, again, like, and this will be born out in the data, and we'll just need to do enough checking to see, like, enough spot checking to be comfortable with it, which is how many issues get closed because they're not an issue, right? Someone opens up a problem, we look into it, it's not a product related, we close it, we give them some hints or whatever it is, we can close it and move on with our lives. And that would get caught up in here as well, right?
But aren't those, like, a lot of times documentation issues that we should be going and updating, like, and fixing based on that? Like, that would be the next question, right? Like, is it the same issues getting opened by customers 3 times a month? Then we clearly don't have good documentation on that, right? Like, that would be kind of my suspicion on that.
Yeah, some of them are just like, oh, we're having this problem with the Linux package. Oh, we trace it back to a problem with your system or a configuration of your Linux instance or something like that, right? And so we just close it. So I'm not sure what percentages are. I think distribution, having had some experience, might make it a higher percentage of like environmental problems than others. But it's probably still not a significant source of issues.
Shouldn't support be handling those? Like, that's the thing is, like, should we be pushing on support to resolve it?
What does that
maybe.
look like?
I'm sorry?
What would that actually look like? Like, what does support handling those mean? Like, if a customer customer user opens an issue in a public tracker and it comes back to, like, being a configuration problem, like, does that mean labeling in a certain way, or kind of what's your vision there?
I don't know. That's a good point. Is that this could be short-circuiting the support process. So, like, to your point, if support, like, I wasn't making that assumption, support was engaged beforehand, but I think that's a interesting point, which is if it turns out that customers are short-circuiting by creating the issues directly, but then we find out that they're customer related, that almost feels like we should have a level of triage there even before it gets to development.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting problem. Typically, if they're a customer, we would typically send them back to Zendesk and we'd close that out. So maybe that is a chance for, like, some sort of labeling that we need to do there.
Well, like, let's say it's like, if it's like Josh is throwing out things that maybe statistically or not statistically significant. My point is well, let's first figure out whether it's statistically significant. Some of those, though, is also just like us getting some consistency around it, because, like, if it's taking either product's time or development's time when it shouldn't be, then that's something we should be optimizing for, right? That would be my sense of it, or at least having a discussion around to say, yeah, that's we're more than comfortable with that level.
Can we go back on the out of this deliverable and this miserable data? Like, what would you like to see, Christopher, and what Josh? Let's put it together and then we'll run with it. Like, so we want to focus on issues, correct? Issues with deliverables, and they need to be backed by an MR. They're closed.
Well, I think one thing is what Christopher was saying is that you want to see the number of issues closed per milestone versus deliverable issues closed per milestone, right? Like,
that could be added. Like, if you just want a total with it and have this be a stack, like total and then issues with marked with deliverable, that could be like pretty easy to put in.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Christopher, you good with that? It's an easy change. Okay.
Yeah.
Big thumbs up. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Mick. Sorry about that.
My pleasure, sir. 1 second. Let me just do a decision.
One nickel. Can we just say closed? Oh yeah, just closed issues per milestone. Might be easier, more straightforward.
Okay, writing this now. And just for context, Remy is busy with label migration, so he can't join this meeting. But I'll put this feedback back to his team. Aim to close issues with deliverables on total visual.
Thanks, Tanya.
I will follow up this next week. Anything else? I think we need to make it clear in the next PM Dev meeting that the chart before was MRs, and now we do want to paint a better picture. So because of it, the chart in the Excel sheet is actually MRs with the deliverable label, not issues.
Correct.
The one we talked about yesterday.
Just so you know that, Christopher. And so
that's MRs.
Yes, yeah. We missed discussing that yesterday.
Okay. All right.
To calm everybody down, I think the end goal is to just build this in Periscope, which is the next bullet item, right? Just get everything in, add all the logic in, and then everybody will be happy there.
Can you go back to that again, real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So we went from 300 to 400. And what did we do over that same time period in MRs? Like, Dolly, do you have that crisp in your head? I don't have that crisp in my head. So I think we took down those.
Which one?
Like 11/8. 11/8 was which month?
That would be
February.
Thank you.
Yeah, so including community contributions, we've gone from 1,400 to 1,900. And we have gone from 300 to 400. So 1,500 of our MRs are not marked as either deliverable or not marked as deliverable. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think this is likely a flaw in the calculation. Here, which I didn't really think about that much, which is that some people might not be flagging, depending on how you create the MR, it may or may not pick up the labels from the issue, and then therefore if you forget to apply deliverable, which probably happens, you then might get undercounted. Although it's weird that the trend would, I guess if people just, I don't know, it's, anyways, so.
Yeah, it's like basically what I'm saying is we have a 3-to-1 ratio of untracked work.
3-to-1 ratio.
Well, I mean,
yeah. I wonder how much of it is this.
I'm sorry?
I was just adding, I think it's likely labeling because we've been stressing on the team and scope labels for MRs, and we haven't really necessarily been emphasizing
deliverable.
Yeah,
yep.
I think there may be inconsistencies at the MR level for that.
So
data analysis, I'm just telling you what the data says right now, and what, like, if I was going to make a conclusion, that would be my conclusion. And tell me if I'm not thinking about that correctly.
You're comparing total MRs to MRs with deliverable label?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the challenge here is that depending on how we haven't been, as far as I know, strongly encouraging people to manually apply deliverable, and depending on how you create the MR, it may or may not inherit the labels from the issue. And so therefore, if it's not inherited, you get to manually set them. If you're manually setting them, you're probably not, some people are probably not applying the deliverable label. And
correct.
So that might
okay,
be.
So you're saying there's not validity in the deliverable label right now, which that's fine. We'll figure out that. I'm just telling you that, like, if we go fix that, like, and it comes back, it's still at this number. What's our conclusion, right? Like, that's what I'm trying to drive at.
So I think the best fidelity is go by deliverable issue and see if there was an MR marked as related or mentioned in that deliverable issue.
Let me just quickly make sure it actually is MRs. I think it is, but let me just make sure. I'll just do a quick search here.
And heads up, we will roll over. I think this is an important discussion.
So that was weird. That's a bug, huh? I'll screenshot that real fast.
Okay, that doesn't.
Sorry, I just saw that. Okay, so let's take 11.8 as an example. And then labels, label, deliverable. So 179, so a total 181. Gosh, this has been like a week actually, or 2 weeks. We didn't get to it the other time. I'm trying to remember exactly how I calculated and missed. So 181 would have been, 179 would have been closed, right? 181, okay, yeah, so delivered. I think whatever, it may have, that seems vaguely correct. And if I remove this and set, and then grab label missed 11.8, right? 102. Okay, so no, so it's I'm sorry, I'm confusing everyone here on the call. This actually is issues.
I think my blood pressure dropped about 10 points.
There's too much going on in this one.
Okay, so these are issues.
Thanks, Josh.
Correct.
I appreciate you going back and
yeah, sorry for the confusion and the heart attack. Okay, so they are issues. And so the question then is, what the heck is the difference in, you'd think this should be a total of approximately, whatever, you can't, it doesn't tell you the summary. So just, 283. So 11.8, 170.
Can you go back to how you did the query?
So, Chuck, this is a review app, so we need to merge this first. It may be missing some data. Sorry, I did not make that clear before. This is still a work in progress. If I merge this, then it should be on top of the production chart that we have right now. It could be missing some of the data.
Okay. Yeah, so basically the queries I ran was number of issues with the missed 11.8 label, right? And then it would have been the number of issues that were closed with a milestone 11.8 and a label of deliverable, which is how this was ran. And frankly, I probably should have, this should actually be 179, not 181, but whatever, it's two issues. Because these two never got completed and they're still assigned to 11.8, which
the deliverable.
Oh,
can you move the deliverable label real quick?
Remove it?
Yeah, just for a second. I just need to see something and run it again. Okay, all right. So, you have them stacked, but they're not actually stacked, and I'm not sure what the right answer is there.
I have them stacked, not actually stacked.
You basically stack the delivered and missed. So you say 181 were delivered and 102 were missed. I interpreted that when you stack them as that we should have 383 in the case of 11.8.
283.
Or 283.
Yeah, which would be which should be the case, right? Because what happens is would be if they were completed, they would have had the label and the milestone, they'd be closed in theory, right? And then if they missed it, like anything that's nothing should be open with the 11.8 milestone anymore, but there are some. But then if they missed, they should have gotten bumped to a later milestone and
Correct.
had the label attached with missed.
Missed 11.8, exactly. So the missed items would not be in 11.8. It would be somewhere in the future milestone, but it has that trace that it was missed in 11.8.
Okay, I'm not sure how to articulate it, but something feels off. Like I can't figure out how to make the query so that I get 283 issues.
The problem is that like you can't search historically, right? So you can't see how many things were assigned to that milestone with deliverable, but have now slid, right? So there's no one query you can use to get it, I think.
Correct. So the deliverable ones you need to query based on the milestone because it's still in that milestone. But the missed ones, you just need to query on that label on a star milestone because it could be closed in any milestones in the future, but it has that missed 11.8 label. So you can't just do like a 1 + 1 = 2 in the open and closed number and have it reconcile. Does that
should be a GitLab feature, frankly. Like you should really go check some of this stuff without requiring your triage bot to like apply labels automatically. But anyways, that's a side discussion.
All right, I'm gonna have to think about it. Like it just feels like we made an assumption yesterday. I made an assumption yesterday of we went from 300 to 400 items being planned. I'm not convinced of the math right now, and that's the best way to describe it. Because like right now, I can't even query to see what was planned.
I think the only way to see what was planned is to look at what was planned and completed, which would be closed in that milestone, right? That's the easiest portion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then things that weren't completed would then have stayed open and would then have been assigned to a later milestone. And the only way you know that it was actually originally planned in a given milestone and that it missed is the missed dash label.
missed dash version label.
Okay.
And there are edge cases where people push things out because they know they're not going to hit them. The only time that label gets applied is A, manually, which is not all the time, and B, if the quality team's triage comes through and applies it at the end of the milestone. But things that have been pushed out later or earlier in the cycle may or may not have it if the person didn't actually apply the label, which happens for sure. I've seen it happen.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think, okay. All right. Thanks. I apologize for taking everybody's time. I think I get it now. The other thing to note is there were 582, I think, issues or 83 issues, a total for 11.8 marked with 11.8. So we're about half the volume. 600 total, 591 that were closed.
Yes. So that is also an interesting data point. Like, why are there 600 issues? Now, the thing is, this is GitLab.org, and so there are other things in here, right? I don't have an easy way to run these numbers, and I mean, I guess I could selectively choose C, E, and E, but then you have the runner, you have Omnibus, you have like all these other things in there. Like, so I just, for simplicity's sake, I just use the GitLab.org project and search, or group and search there. And I would hope that things that aren't a customer-facing product and go through planning don't have the deliverable label.
I think this is why we should just add it in the dashboard because it's the same data population. So you're not
my assertion would be is that we had 600 issues related to 11.8 where people were spending time. So at the end of the day, if you want to increase velocity, which is different than throughput, if you want to increase velocity, which is, focused area, you got to figure out how to basically take that time, right? Like you could argue we're at half capacity right now from a velocity perspective. I'm not saying we'll ever get to 100% velocity, to be clear, but 50% feels awfully low.
Yeah, I'd be curious on the filtered version mech. If we could do that, because that you can see like release tasks. This would never go through planning. It would never have deliverable label attached to.
Right.
Sure, but are people spending time on that?
Yes, for the infra team, but the infra team doesn't have a PM, right? So they don't go through planning, so that there wouldn't be a deliverable label attached to it.
Well, if it's a security release and the release engineers do spend time verifying it, if you're talking about spending time, like there's some investment there.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's where, Josh, I'm not asking you to go do the calculations as much as tell us what the right way to view the calculation is, right? So then we can figure out how to best ask Mech for the data around it, right? Because like then then we have a better sense for how we evaluate this.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of questions, right? One is, what's our confidence or what's our predictability, right? That's like one question, which is what sort of I was trying to answer here, which is for things, for every issue we assign a milestone, what's the likelihood of that thing actually getting delivered in that milestone? And that's what I was trying to drive at here. And I think that's important to try and keep track of because we're getting feedback from customers that right now it's too low. It's causing frustration. They just don't have confidence in our milestones that will actually ship it. So that's a problem. And so I think we're trying to turn out to 70%. So we should have some dashboard in an automated way that's more scientific and less, I think doing it here is good because it'll automatically filter out other projects. It'll align with other reporting that we have, and it won't require people doing manual work. And so I think having that comparison, if it's somehow possible, Mech, to know, this number of issues as planned, this is the number of issues that was actually completed, and this is the percentage, would be good to answer the predictability score. I think
this would be easy for us to do it I know everybody wants to move off, but since the data population is there, it's probably like a 2 or 3 day task from our team to just render it there. And then we will work into the parity with Periscope later. And I would run with that actually, because the urgency of the data seems to be higher than migrating to Periscope. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure. I just vote for whatever is the easiest.
Okay.
It sounds like Periscope has challenges. So.
Sorry, I was trying to look for my mute button and I'm unmuted anyways. Yeah, I think a couple day effort is warranted here because we'd like to have the information sooner than later.
Right.
Periscope is still until we get data validation in place, which may take a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is important, right? So what do you want? In one column, you want delivered deliverables for that milestone, and then you want totals, correct, Christopher? Total issues, and then issues that were closed with deliverable, like delivered, and then the rest. That's one, correct?
Yeah. So I would want one with just total issues completed. And if there are certain things like infrastructure ones that we can somehow filter out, that'd be great. But that may take some working. And then the other one is the one that I think Josh put below, which is number of planned issues completed divided by the total planned issues.
Sorry, come again. Number of planned issues completed divided by the
total number of planned issues. Let's try that and see what the data kind of brings us. And if we make CSVs, then we can figure out from there. Like right now, my biggest concern is that I think our total issues completed, like let's even say 100 of those 600 is things that are automated or part of the delivery team. That still means we've got over 200 issues or 300 issues potentially that are, things we're doing.
Okay. All right, here's some right here, right? Whatever this is, Stan here, crowd regression.
Yeah, I'm guessing some of them are customer escalations. I'm guessing some of them are outright bugs that we need to fix. I'm sure some of it's people doing the right thing. We just need to look at it from a overall perspective. Say, or like how do we view this? Because like if it turns out that like half of our capacity is shit happening, then we need to go back and say, you know what, actually hitting 70% of target. The only way you get to 70% of target is if you basically push back harder on what's going to get delivered, right?
I agree that's a really important metric to understand, right? Like what percent of the overall throughput is planned versus unplanned work, basically.
Because what you're showing over the last several releases is basically a static on delivery. What we're seeing on MRs is a growth. Some of that could be because of gaming the system. We know that. But I think also some of it is honestly we're actually got more volume coming through. It's just, it may not be feature focused. Yep. And the question becomes is that the right decision? Like this is a hypothetical, but say I go through the planning process, middle of the month, I come back to a product manager and I say, yeah, we need to go do this because it's super important. They agree. Should that be considered deliverable? That bumps something else, right? Like, got to make those kinds of calls too, right?
Yep. So I think getting the data would be really helpful to help us get our arms around it, understand the size of this work being done, and then we can figure out whether it's appropriate or where it's going, and just sort of do analysis out, like just to dig deeper depending what the data shows.
Okay. The total number of planned issues, I'm assuming you mean the incremental with the missed version added to that milestone, correct?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think there was that one issue when we were talking about having a better capture of upfront what was planned, but I think that might even have flaws, based on discussion here around like things that might get a little label in the middle of a release, right? And what do you do? And how do you deal with that? Like if a bug comes in that's hot, you work on it,
Okay. Let me run with this ask, and then let's follow up the next time around. I'll try to get at least like one chart in with the second one. We'll try to get both, but I think the first one is pretty easy. Is that okay? Should we move on? We do have a few
yeah, sure. I think again we can just to make a decision here. Let's just go with the same definition I had for the current spreadsheet, if that makes sense, right? Which is it's completed, it's closed with a deliverable label and the current milestone. If it's missed, it has the missed dash version label for that.
Right,
milestone.
And that's the one on top that we ran in. Yeah, sure, understood. Okay, next one is status on Periscope, Christopher. I think in a few weeks you're saying until they have parity.
Yeah, I mean, in theory it should be next week. Essentially, they're doing backfilling right now. The way they've done it is they turned off transforming while they're backfilling the data, so they're backfilling and then they'll have to rerun a transforming. Emily's right now ETA is probably tomorrow afternoon. My guess is it might be sometime Monday, but then we need to then go back and look at the graphs to see whether or not we have parity or not. So there's probably going to be some work associated with it once we get to that point. So I was trying to give us another say week to figure out what if anything, if there's missing data or things of that nature that we have to go do.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I talked to Emily and she's okay with the engineering productivity just going in and updating the SQL definitions as well. So I'm ramping up some training on our side just to have more eyes on resource here. Okay. Thanks for the update.
Sure thing.
Okay, I have the next one. So I have a recording meeting for Friday. I invite everybody here to join. It is probably 9 a.m. or 10 p.m. to discuss about prioritization. Josh, you accepted already. Christopher, can you make it? We'll do a recording on prioritization discussions, how to use it.
Yeah, I can definitely make that. Is it just the three of us then?
No, I'm going to extend to everyone in this meeting.
Okay.
If they're interested to join. But like the most crucial discussions are between us three because that's like how to use prioritization and then we'll take it to the product team meeting next week as well.
Okay.
Okay. Next one is on mine. So we're gonna start seeing data right now. Remy is busy, and the background work from Mark and Jin as well. And the new trash package with the new labels should come in next week with the new labels, and they will also see bugs that were missed SLOs in their respective group trash packages as well. So we're aiming to close this week. Christopher, you have the next one.
Yeah, so I just typing this in. So basically we have the training up there, and I reviewed it, and it is 6 months old, so I feel like we should probably do an update. The one question I have in my mind is whether or not we should hold off until we have it in Periscope and make that outside of the current process, because it feels like if it turns into we could show Periscope data, then it might be a better model for that. And kind of curious on folks' thoughts around that, or if we should just do one now and then potentially do one in 2 months or a month.
I think we should talk about prioritization now and just not emphasize on the charts, and we can do another one in about a month or 2 months when we have that in Periscope.
Okay, so we'll say that we'll but 2 months off. So what we'll do is we'll engineering will do that, or development will do that as part of normal process. But we won't hold up closure of the working group. Does that make sense? So we can mark that one as 100% on the training for the throughput.
That makes sense.
Okay.
I have the next one. Josh, you mentioned you want to reevaluate the exit criteria. Is there anything?
No, I'm good. I think my only question was whether to look more intensely at P issues than S issues. That was my only main comment here. So we have a lot of items here around severity 1, severity 2. My only question would be, should we use P's instead of S's? Because if it's a high severity and a high impact, you should get a high priority label. So that might be more relevant to try and get some time to resolve on than like the S labels, which have no SLO on them, for example.
Yeah, the metric on the S labels is kind of like an anti-metric. Like we can be hitting our P's, but are we actually, like how we average on actually closing our high severity one? So it's like an anti-metric in addition to how we hold ourselves to the SLOs per se. But in the short term, on execution wise, I think we should focus on P labels, because that will give them a gauge on which milestone to peg on, right? And then we'll execute it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think my question is like an exit criteria. I was hoping we could, I was trying to optimize for making sure we did a better job on P labels. And I just don't see P label like SLO.
On the exit criteria, yeah, that's a good
on the exit criteria. Yeah. So that's why I was confused. Because it seems like we're saying that that's a problem here that we want to solve, but I'm not sure we're actually trying to solve it.
We have charts on missed SLOs on P1 to P3s. We can work on the exit criteria on that. So why don't we talk about that next week? And if we want to adjust that instead. I think
cool.
Time on S is already there. Like the number is there. We can't bring it down yet in the short term. Yeah, I apologize. We're way over time. Should cut time better.
You don't have to apologize for that, Mac. It's all me. The time.
I'm the facilitator, so we can share that. Okay. My gut feel is that we might need end of August or a bit into September, given all the passionate discussions around deliverables and deliverables. But what do folks feel? I don't want to close this without drawing closure on a bunch of important items, especially things that drive discussions for Christopher in the PM and Dev meeting. So I don't think we should hastily close it. I think we should have confidence in data first and close it. But I think aiming for middle of Q3 is a good time. Does that sound okay for everybody?
Hey, I'm going to be bold here and apologize. Tanya, do you think you could run this meeting?
I could certainly try. I don't think I'd be nearly as good at it as Mike is.
Well, it's time for new experiences, right?
Sure.
So my proposal is if we're going to run till the middle of September, that we find a new facilitator of the meeting. That's Tanya, you're probably the best person would be my guess. Mac, if you have a different opinion, I'm open to proposals. The main reason for this is Mac's we're trying to run another working group, and we specifically have said one working group, one facilitator. Never shall there be multiple uses of the same person or a piece of the same person.
Cool.
I'm open to that. So.
It's a bold statement, and I apologize for not asking privately first. But yeah, if that makes sense, let's do the MR for that and go with that. And Mac will still be here to participate, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. So why don't we use the next one as a staging point, so Tanya can get comfortable. She's been attending multiple times now, so I think it should be fine. And then we'll get the MR out. Sounds good? Okay. I will upload the recording, and then let's catch up on the metrics offline async.
Thanks, everyone. Sorry for the curveball on MRs versus issues.
It was good to dive into.
Like I said, I can now go put the blood pressure medicine down. So we're good. Good. Cool. Thanks, Mac.